No. You're welcome for saving you money. I'll go ahead and dive into the weeds of it a little bit, but I'll be clear up front, I haven't finished this game and don't plan on finishing it either. I always approach games with an open mind, even ones that I have very low expectations for, like Star Wars Outlaws. Darman always taught me, never judge a book by its cover. But this book reads exactly like the cover told me it would. Generic, dull, open-world Ubisoft experience. Or really lack thereof an experience. Ubisoft is like the Ed Gein of gaming companies. They just keep putting different skin on the same formula. First it was Avatar with Frontiers of Pandora, now it's Star Wars with Outlaws here. And it's just so exhausting. I'm only a handful of hours into this game, and I just can't see myself pushing through to finish it. It's just tedious. And oftentimes, just for the sake of being tedious. For example, when you're hacking into a door, splicing it, you do a tiny little rhythm minigame for the lock picking. And that's fine, like that's kind of cute. But then after you rhythm game lockpick that door, you then have to do it to the door 3 steps ahead of you. And then you have to do it for the container 4 steps ahead of you that you were supposed to do for the mission to get the item out of it. So you go back to back to back lockpicking rhythm mini games, and you do this so many times so early in the game that you immediately just hate it. Now, I've seen quite a few other reviewers saying they ended up just turning it off, because that is one of the things you can do. You can just turn off the lockpicking minigame. I guess the developers recognize that shit sucks, and I think that's the optimal way of playing, because for some reason it almost feels like they're padding for time. You have to do so much of it, like from the very beginning for some reason. But anyway, I've seen a lot of people insulting this game, like just clowning on it, dunking on it for the complete absence of facial animations and lip syncing. So there's cutscenes and dialogue where characters, they don't move. They don't emote or gesture or anything. They just like telepathically communicate and their mouth doesn't move. It's like if you went to a ventriloquism act and the guy working the dummy doesn't do this with the mouth. It is weird, it's off-putting, but that's also like the least of my problems with this game. The main gripe I have with it is just how generic and boring it is. Like, I can't even say it's necessarily a bad game, because I have no doubt there are people that will appreciate just getting fed the exact same pile of shit for the 50th time from Ubisoft. Like, it becomes comfort food at that point from the chef. So I know there's going to be people that actually enjoy it, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I am so tired of this same game getting pushed out from Ubisoft. Like, I don't think this game is unplayably awful, it's just mind-numbingly boring and uninteresting. The story is about as cliche and generic as it comes, at least so far. The characters, it really does feel like all of it is just characters that were written by AI, and I'm really tired of giving that fucking criticism, but it does feel that way. They don't have any real personality. It also doesn't even really feel like the voice actors are trying all that hard to try and breathe life into the characters. It just feels like everything about this game is just going through the motions. So the game is a huge emphasis on stealth, but the stealth turbo ass, it super sucks. So you'll be oftentimes hiding in tall grass, because that's the extent of the stealth mechanics here. So you crouch in tall grass, you whistle to lure someone over, and then you do the stealth takedown, which I think is the stupidest takedowns I've seen in stealth games, where she basically pops out. The main character's name is Kay, so Kay will basically pop out and do this, give him the fucking, knuckle sandwich here, insta KO them, or sometimes do like a gut punch into a haymaker, and then that's your stealth takedown. But sometimes when you're doing the stealth takedown from the bush like you're supposed to, it'll still alert the entire area, even if there was no one around to hear it. Like a fucking tree falling in the forest, but everyone somehow hears it despite not being in the forest. It's ridiculous. And it's really inconsistent, because sometimes you'll do that, and if you get caught in a lot of these missions, it's an instant fail, so you have to do it again. And you'll do it again like Groundhog Day, and this time, magically, nobody sees you do it. So it's just kind of inconsistent with those mechanics there and what the AI sees and doesn't see. And sometimes the AI is just broken. So not every mission results in a failure if you don't do stealth. Sometimes you can go loud and, use your blaster. And I'll get to the combat in a minute. But sometimes in my playthrough, when I would go loud, the AI would just cease to function. Like, I'd stand right in front of somebody, and the AI would just be like, "Where are they? What's that noise?" And just like shooting to the sides, or like shooting at where I was maybe 15 seconds ago. But even when everything's working as intended, it's still just not fun gunplay or combat. So you have your blaster, and you have a couple different modes you'll unlock for your blaster that do different things and excel in different situations. And you're just stuck with the goddamn noisy cricket the whole time. That little tiny blaster that looks like a toy. There is an ability to pick up better weapons from enemies that you kill, but it's temporary, and you drop them anytime you do another action, like climb a ladder or something, so then you're just right back to the same blaster. It's just, I don't know, I didn't have any fun with it. Like, I don't think it's bad. Like, it's definitely serviceable, but I don't think serviceable warrants $70. Like, there's nothing in this game that I think it does really well, other than one mechanic that I actually found myself enjoying far more than I would have expected to, and that's your animal companion, Nyx. You have a little minion with you, your sidekick, and you can have him do different things like solving some puzzles by having him go to switches or open things, or in combat you can have him like attack somebody or distract somebody or sabotage a barrel. And it's actually kind of fun to do that, and there are some cool combos you can do when you start integrating that little goober into the flow of gameplay, but everything else is just same shit, different toilet. I really was super surprised by how lackluster the story was. Now, again, I haven't finished it, so maybe it like gets really good towards like the end of the game or something, but man, by the time you reach there, I feel like most people have already checked out. I did a lot of exploring, trying to do a lot of side stuff, because I thought maybe that's where like some really fun stuff would happen or some cool characters, but all the side stuff, man, it's just more of the same chore simulator shit. At least all the side activities I was trying to do. And the overall narrative is just a very simple, predictable plot. And there is an idea here that I think could have worked really well with the reputation system, where you can have different reputation, like the Huts or Crimson Dawn and all of that. But it just feels like unrealized potential with that, because there's really no consequences. Like, let's say you ruin your reputation with the Huts. You go in there, you fist them, they're like, this lady stinks. Kay Vess is the worst. Put her wanted poster in here. That's a kill on sight. Bury her 6 feet under. Well, you can immediately kind of earn that reputation back and become their savior, their angel, by just doing like a couple of odd jobs. At least so far. Like, again, I can only speak for the handful of hours I've played, but at least so far you can kind of always get your reputation to where you want it really simply and very easily. So it doesn't matter all that much. Also, I will say there's another idea that I do think could have been cool, and that's the way they handle progression. So instead of just having like a normal talent tree or something, there's different people that'll teach you different things if you fulfill certain requirements. So like going out there and using a talk jutsu like Naruto, you can earn by doing 5 melee takedowns and 3 distracted enemy takedowns, and then you get the ability to do that. It's a cool idea. I do like that idea. It just would have been improved if the things you were earning were just better, or just more fun to experiment with. But yeah, overall, I just wasn't enjoying my time with Star Wars Outlaws. I don't think it's an awful game per se. It's just the same game that I have experienced so many times already from Ubisoft. I'm just so bored of it. They do try a few new things in here, so like flying through space. And that could definitely work if it wasn't Ubisoft making it. What ends up happening with flying through space, at least so far, is you just do the same shit. You really just do the same shit. You'll fly to like some treasure and loot it, and maybe you'll like shoot a couple of enemy fighters in the air, and then that's about it. There's not a whole lot of depth to that, at least not as far as I am here. But I feel like after a handful of hours, if you're just not enjoying something, it's probably not worth just investing even more hours into it to force yourself to try and find some level of pleasure from it. So I'm not gonna push through Star Wars Outlaws. I'll just give you my thoughts on it as of right now. And yeah, that's about it. See ya. Black Ops 6 is only worth buying if you already like Call of Duty. If you don't like the formula, or it's gotten old for you, you're exhausted with the same experience time and time again, I don't think this is new enough to get you back aboard the hype train. If you've already checked out, this isn't going to be the thing that gives you a new needle to get addicted to. It is, at its core, just kind of same shit, different toilet. I had a lot of hype for this game because I really enjoyed the beta. The Omni movement really felt fresh, like it breathed some new life into a pretty stale formula, at least for me. But now on full release, after playing like 7 hours worth of the multiplayer, it just feels the same. And I think it's because in the beta, everyone was spamming Omni Movement because it was new and shiny, and everyone wanted to play with that toy. Everyone trying out the new butt plug with Omni Movement. And now the full game's out, and you realize you don't really need to be spamming Omni Movement. Like, it's a nice little bonus. Like, it does feel pretty fluid. Like, the movement does feel good. But it doesn't really change anything at all, really. It's like if I put little risers in my shoes to go from 5'6" to 5'7". Like, yeah, it is better, but no one's going to notice. Like, it makes such a trivial difference. And that's kind of how I feel about Omni Movement. It's fun to, like, dive around corners like it's Max Payne 3, but it's still just the same Call of Duty, but with much worse maps in the multiplayer. I'll get to that in a moment. Let's just go ahead and go through the whole thing. I really like zombies. I want to get that up top. I am having so much fun with zombies, much more than I expected to. I haven't been into zombies to this degree in quite a while. Like, I was actually doing Easter eggs earlier today, which I haven't done in years. But let's just go campaign multiplayer and we'll finish with zombies. Campaign had a lot of glaze. Like, it got like 9 out of 10 from IGN or something. Not that anyone really takes IGN super seriously anymore, unless, of course, they're making fools of themselves by giving The Penguin a 5 or Transformers 1 a 5 or whatever. But they gave this a 9, so everyone's like, oh, this must be like a pretty crazy Call of Duty campaign. Not really. The first, like, I'd say like 70% of the Call of Duty campaign is good. Like, it is one of the better Call of Duty campaigns. I don't think it's the best one, but it is good. I was having a great time with it. I thought they did a really nice job with the set pieces, the action. The story, of course, is nothing to write home about, but it's serviceable, and it was a good time. But the last 30%, like the last 2 hours of the game, is fucking miserable. It falls apart and it becomes just tedious chores for the sake of padding time and nonsense. Like, you go into a different dimension fighting an alternate version of yourself, and then you're strangling the life out of a cosmic being entity. It's so dumb. And it's close to being fun shitty. Like, it's so stupid that it almost wraps back around to being good if it wasn't so tiresome. Like, it slows down the pacing of the game to a crawl. It is glacial. So then you're having to, like, slowly go through these things, listen to the exposition, which by this point you don't really care about. You've definitely mentally checked out because it is just overstaying its welcome. And then you finally have, like, this weird thing that's unfolding, and it's, like, kind of cool how weird it is, but then you remember it took you like 30 minutes of just listening to yapping and like slowly opening doors and collecting little pieces of glass, and you just want it to be over. I think this is probably the longest Call of Duty campaign, and like I said, 70% of it is good, but the last 30% ruin everything that came before it. It is not a 9 out of 10. The campaign is mostly good. Like, I think it is more good than bad, but man, I cannot stress enough just how boring the last 30% was. I won't focus on the campaign too much. Instead, I want to put the screws to the multiplayer here because I think that's the meat that everyone wants to know about. How is the beef? Is it well done? Is it rare? What are we looking like here? And I think the multiplayer is going to be good for people that already really like COD. I think it is a pretty fine-tuned, normal Call of Duty experience. The only part that I think most people will probably agree on, and they already kind of are, is that the map selection is trash. Jiminy Christmas, I don't know what went wrong with the maps. They got hit by the fucking stupid beam over there at the headquarters when designing these things. Some of them are just unforgivably big for no reason. Red Card. Red Card is the worst map in Call of Duty history. I'm just going to say it. Whoever brainstormed and spearheaded Red Card, we need to have a chat about maybe getting off the map design department there, because that is horrifyingly bad. There's like 3 different levels and elevations to it with like 1,000 little hidey holes to be just holding down and camping, and you will sit there for like 4 or 5 minutes and not see a soul because the map is so big, everything's so spread out. It's like you're basically playing RuneScape grinding agility when you're playing on Red Card. Like, you're just having a single player mind-numbing experience on that map. I hate it. And if you do find some action and you push into the other team's spawn and the spawn switch, they need to give you a vehicle to get to the other side, because it's going to take half the goddamn time allotted to the match just to go from one side to the other. Now, I know I'm exaggerating a bit, but the map is way too big. That is the point. It is way too big, everything way too like closed off. So it's not even like open and big. Like this is a ground war sized map where you're not seeing anybody. Like it's so lame. I won't harp on that too long, but there's a couple maps like that that are just way too big. So you don't get to do anything. It's super boring. I don't know why they made these huge maps that don't fit. And even when the maps aren't way too big, most of them are just unfun. Like, there's not a ton of 3-lane maps anymore. Like, I know they're trying to get away from that, and it shows, like, they definitely are trying to get away from that. But in doing so, what they end up making is just maps that are chaos for the sake of chaos, where everything has, like, 5 different wraps and, like, 5 different hidey hole angles that someone could be poking their little head out like a gopher. Like, the maps just really aren't fun. Like, I would prefer just more 3-lane maps. Like, I know it's generic, I know it's been overdone to death in the franchise, but at least it was fun. These, I just haven't been having a good time with. The only 2 maps that I've consistently enjoyed are Payback and Subsonic. I haven't heard anyone talk about Subsonic, but I've actually really enjoyed that map. I don't even think it's that good of a map, like, objectively speaking, but it's like the only map where I'm getting action constantly and it doesn't feel like I'm getting shot from fucking, the upside down where I had no idea you could even get to. It's just a fine map. And Payback I actually think is a good map. I have liked Payback quite a bit. I think that's probably the strongest here. I know a lot of people like Vorkuta. And Vorkuta's fine. Like, I think that's another, like, serviceable map, but I'm not going, ballistic over it. I'm not pumping my fist like, yeah, this is the fucking gold standard for Black Ops 6 maps. It's okay. For me, Payback is my favorite map. That is the worst part of the multiplayer, is how bad the maps are. Other than that, everything else is fine, even good in certain degrees. Like, I do think the movement feels very fluid. I think that is a nice thing, but it doesn't feel different from other Call of Duties. It just feels like they've got the movement pretty fine-tuned by this point into the franchise. The guns feel good. Really, all of it feels good. Pretty much exactly what you expect from Call of Duty if you've played any of the previous titles. It is the exact same meal that you are getting served again. And for a lot of people, that's going to be that nice comfort food, and for others, it's just going to be pretty bland. For me, I'm somewhere in between. Like, I'm having some fun just playing through. I'm not grinding camos or anything, but hopping on and just banging out a couple of games, dropping like a fat, stinky 30 or 40 bomb before skill-based matchmaking claps my cheeks biblically, has been enjoyable. Like, I am not having a terrible time with it, but it really is just the same Call of Duty again, but with movement that I think feels more fluid than last year's title. I do want to mention skill-based matchmaking since I briefly brought it up. A lot of people are talking about it for good reason. It is harsh. The skill-based matchmaking in this is harsh. If you have one good game, I hope you're ready to get to the fucking esports challenger circuit here, because your next game is going to have the sweatiest, striving pros you have ever played against. Like, God forbid you have one game where you pop off, the next game, you are getting slapped. You are getting put into timeout, mister, and you're going to be wearing the dunce cap because skill-based matchmaking doesn't want to see you thrive, soldier. Definitely think they set the dial to wumbo on that, and it's kind of unnecessary. I've always been pretty vocal about my belief that Halo 2 had this whole skill-based matchmaking thing solved 20 fucking years ago. You have ranked playlists, where you're playing against people of similar skill because it's ranked, and then you have casual, where anything goes. You could be playing against a 9-year-old who just got the game for Christmas and it's his first time holding the controller, or you could be going up against Eric, who's trying his best to make it in the collegiate Call of Duty esports scene. You never really know. I truly don't think everything needs to be skill-based matchmaking. I just think you could divide it into categories like Halo 2 did all those years ago. I get the philosophy behind it, where you try and cater to every possible player, where if you do queue up casual and you play against pros and you're that 9-year-old who's never played a game before, it might make you leave the game because you got stomped so hard. Yeah, I'm sure that's definitely possible, and I'm sure there's data to back it up, but I still just think, trust the intelligence of the players. Like, if you want to be playing against people of similar skill, you would go to ranked, where you would be playing against people of similar skill, and if you just want, like, anything goes, you play casual. So if you're the 9-year-old who's never played a game before and you go to casual and you're getting stomped, go to ranked and you'll play against people that are equally as shit. Like, I think everything would balance out just like it did 20 years ago. I think it's just unnecessary to make everything skill-based matchmaking, but I know that's the norm now. I'm not here to just, like, harp on that for too long, but I did want to mention it because it does feel pretty extreme in Black Ops 6. But like I said, overall, multiplayer is pretty much exactly what you'd expect. I got the exact same Call of Duty experience, more or less. I do think it's a better version. It's just not a different version or anything. Not that I think anyone expected it to be like drastically different, but I really thought it would feel different to play. Instead, it just feels like the same Call of Duty, but just a little more responsive. I like the TTK, hate the maps, but overall, I've been having some fun with the multiplayer, and I think if you like Call of Duty, you'll probably really enjoy it. If you don't like Call of Duty, I don't think it's winning you over. Do want to talk about zombies now, though, because there is a lot of people that buy these games just for zombies. I think you might be in for a treat here. I'm not, the preeminent expert on zombies. I love World at War Zombies. I grinded the shit out of World at War Zombies, a bit into Black Ops, and I know Black Ops 2 and 3, like, people love and revere the zombies there. I didn't spend too much time playing those, if I'm being completely honest. I do appreciate them, but I didn't spend a ton of time in there. In Black Ops 6, though, I'm really liking it. I'm really, really liking it. So you have Liberty Falls and you have Terminus. Liberty Falls is definitely the easier of the two. It's pretty simple. Like, everything's pretty straightforward there. Like, that's the zombies experience that I remember from World at War, except World at War was much harder. It's pretty easy in Liberty Falls, and it's really fun. Tons of zombies, tons of guns, tons of Easter eggs. You know what to expect there. Liberty Falls, I think, is a good map for people that have never played it before, and even if you've played zombies before, I think you'll still have fun with Liberty Falls. There's a lot to do. And Terminus is where you go when you're ready to become a man. Terminus is definitely the more difficult of the two here, and I really like it a lot. It is so fucking fun. I was trying to do Kraken earlier. I don't want to get into spoilers, I'm sure. I think a lot of the fun for Easter eggs is trying to figure it out with your friends, and I think people are going to have a really good time with it. And Terminus just offers a lot. I don't even know really how to talk about zombies, because if you're into zombies, you already know a ton about it. I'm just here to tell you that I think they did a good job with zombies in this one. I do think they kind of crushed it here. I think they were cooking. Overall, though, is Black Ops 6 worth buying? It is if you already like Call of Duty, and it is if you really like zombies. I don't think if you're tired of Call of Duty, you're going to like this one. I think it is just the same Call of Duty. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. It really just feels the exact same, just with fluid, pretty tight movement, and everything feels pretty fine-tuned, except with horrible maps to accompany them. So I don't think this wins you over if you're tired of the Call of Duty formula. I think this is just a good Call of Duty for zombies, and good if you just want that comfort of playing another Call of Duty game. So if you don't fall into any of those camps, a zombies fan or a Call of Duty fan, probably not going to like this one. I don't think it's worth buying if you're just playing it for the campaign. I don't know how many people buy Call of Duty just for the campaign, but I definitely don't think it is worth buying if you're only playing it for the story. You're going to be disappointed, I think. And yeah, that's really about it. See ya. Black Myth Wukong was my most anticipated game of the year, and many others feel the same way. This was a game that had a lot of hype around it, and typically what happens when a game reaches this level of hype is that it becomes impossible for the game to ever deliver on those expectations. Because people will immediately start going Insano style with unrealistic expectations. When this game drops, it's going to change the gaming industry forever. It's going to get my parents back together after the messy divorce. It's going to find me a wife, and it's going to make me 6 inches taller. Like, calm down. It's a video game, not a fairy godparent, you know what I mean? It just becomes very easy to get lost in the hype train that goes off the rails, so when the title actually does drop, it leads to people being disappointed or underwhelmed with it. However, in the case of Black Myth Wukong, I'm happy to say it actually exceeded my expectations. I've now dumped 30 hours into this puppy here, and I just want to give you my full review on it. Now, I actually haven't even gotten the true ending yet, because there's still a lot of things you have to do to get the secret true ending, which I'm going to go back through and do. But I wanted to give you a full review for now with my thoughts on it, and whether or not it's worth your money. First and foremost, I think all of you know Souls-like is my favorite genre. I just fucking love Souls games. I get so giddy to play them. I get more excited for that than Randy Pitchford does at a squirting competition. And I thought Wukong was going to be a Souls-like title because all of the marketing material kind of gave off that vibe. However, it's not a Souls-like game. It's very clearly Souls-inspired, but it's more akin to something like God of War, like recent God of War 2018 and Ragnarok, with Souls elements woven into it. That's like the closest comparison I can make to the combat. But the combat is by far the best part about the game. I'm not disappointed that it's not more of a traditional Souls game. I actually really love the direction they went for the combat. It's not perfect, and I'm going to get into some of the complaints, but overall, it's extremely fun. Now, there is so much progression in this game. There's so many things you can be putting points into to change builds around and all of that. There's 3 stances: smash stance, pillar stance, thrust stance, and there's a lot of depth to what you can put points into. However, the combat itself is functionally going to stay the same no matter what build you're going with. All of your stances all use the same light attacks, for the most part. There is like a spear you can get that changes it around a little bit, but it still plays pretty much the same. What changes and where the variety comes from is through what stances you're using, so that changes your heavy attacks, which cost focus points, and they also introduce a couple of new moves you can do with them in these varied combos. But most of the combat's always going to be revolving around using light attacks to build up focus points, and then using heavy attacks for your actual fucking meat, where you're just feeding someone their vegetables. And that's an expression I'm using very generously, because every boss in this game has a crazy health pool, except for a few. So you're never exactly fucking anybody. You're not chunking anyone's health unless you have a highly min-maxed build for it. Most of the time, at best, you're feeding them like a single grain of corn. You're not giving anyone a heaping serving of vegetables with your damage, which is fine, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But what I want to talk about with the combat is there is a lot that you can be putting points into. So even outside of like the stances and the different things you can unlock there's a lot of static upgrades, there's a lot of magic upgrades where you can use these spells that really do play a huge role into the way that you can approach these fights. So you can do like a shadow clone jutsu for one if you want to put all your points into that, and you can try and have them be like your little minions that really help you chip away at bosses. You can immobilize them. There's a ring of fire that helps with buffs. There's the misstep, which lets you dodge and go invisible. There's transformations that have a bunch of different ones you can transform into from bosses that you've defeated. There is a lot to the progression system. And then even outside of just those core skills that you can be putting points into, there's gourd upgrades. There's medicine that you can be making. There's builds with the armor that you can be going for, with set bonuses. Like, there's just a lot of things and a lot of time you can spend crafting very interesting builds. I've seen quite a few people say that the combat in this game is shallow, and I have to imagine that's a huge self-report that they didn't get past Chapter 2. The game definitely does start with everything's just light attack, rinse and repeat until you have enough for a focus, and then you'll just drop like a charged heavy smash or a charged pillar stance smash, and that's it. But that's only in the beginning. As you continue to go, like, you're still getting new shit all the way till like the end of the game. So the combat continues to get deeper and deeper the more that you play and the more that you start to experiment. Yes, everything uses the same light attacks, but the way that you can approach combat is always going to be different from player to player. For example, towards the end of the game, I was finally able to complete my mythical lightning staff. And what this would do is it would help my pillar stance, and if I do a 3-focused heavy attack, it'll call down a fucking beam of lightning and do additional damage. So I built around that by introducing a spirit, which I don't even know if I mentioned spirits yet. You can also capture some spirits that'll give you bonuses, and you can use them briefly to do like an attack or a buff or something. And I used the Rat Governor spirit. God bless the Rat Governor, the finest politician in the game. He's bringing down the power of Zeus for you. So the Rat Governor comes out, he shoots lightning, and he improves my thunder damage. So it helped with my lightning staff build. So, like, there's just a lot of ways that you can do different things with the combat. Yes, the light attacks stay the same, but as you get deeper and deeper in the game, and as you explore and unlock new things and experiment with new things, you can find a lot of fun ways of approaching the combat, so it never feels like a slog. It never feels like you're not doing anything different. And especially because in this game, you can respec for free whenever you want. I love that feature. At any point in the game, you can just go to one of your shrines, which basically act as your bonfires for any Souls veterans out there, and you can just choose to reignite the sparks, which lets you reallocate all of your points completely for free. You can also do that for the relics, which give you other permanent bonuses. You can respec all of those for free. You can also do that for your medicines. Well, certain medicines that give you permanent buffs. You can redo all of those for free. So you can truly get fucking wacky with the ways that you build your character. And I really appreciate that. I didn't feel like the combat was shallow at all. The only problem I had with the combat is the camera. Well, actually, there's two. The camera would oftentimes be your biggest enemy. Like, that camera sometimes just has a grudge against you. It wants to give you a fucking wet willy whenever it can. You'll be in the middle of a boss fight and the camera just starts doing this like it's a fucking scene on a Cloverfield. And then your camera will like sometimes just go straight into the ground. I had that happen a handful of times. Or even worse, the camera will get stuck in the boss's butt cheeks, because I guess some of the bosses just have gooch physics. So sometimes your camera will just get locked right on the boss's cheeks, and you'll just be staring down the pipe of their poop shooter there like you're giving them a colonoscopy. And then you can't see what moves are coming at you, and it makes it hard to dodge. That's usually reserved for big bosses, which there is a lot of in this game. So that was very frustrating when that happened. Finally, just chipping away at a boss's endless health pool, bringing them to the brink, one pubic hair of health left, and then all of a sudden he kegels my camera. I can't see. He just hits me with the peekaboo and annihilates me. Definitely led to some moments of me just spitting, getting upset. And the other combat-related problem that I was having was some janky hitboxes. There are some bosses in this game, and they're the worst bosses in this game, where you're just hitting at toes. So you have like these skinny chicken-legged bosses, and you can't like hit their body, you have to hit their legs to drop them. And because of these tiny little noodle legs and these itsy-bitsy tootsies, you'll be swinging your light attacks at them, and sometimes it's just not hitting at all. All of your light attacks are missing, so you're not building up focus. When you do get lucky and start hitting them occasionally to build up focus, and you do your, heavy attack like you're doing smash stance, you'll sometimes just completely fucking whiff because it's so skinny, the hitbox is so tight, and there's a little bit of wonkiness to it that you just won't be doing any damage, which obviously doesn't feel good. And there's some bosses that have moves where the hitbox doesn't actually match the visuals. So this was actually a problem with the yellow wind sage, which I know a lot of players were banging their head against the wall against. That's like the first actually challenging boss in the game. And what happens is there's a couple moves where the wind sage will throw out a long-ranged attack, and you're seeing it coming the whole way, and you'll dodge it, but the hitbox actually is a little ahead of the projectile. So when you're ready to dodge it and you go for it, you'll sometimes just get hit because you can't time it right because the hitbox is actually ahead of it. And the Yellow Wind Sage also has a really frustrating design where some of the challenge with the boss is that he goes outside of a sand tornado and just starts spamming moves that you can't see coming. And every boss in the game always can skate across the whole arena to hit you with an attack chain. So if he's starting those attacks outside the tornado, you can't really see when it's coming, and you just have to be like split-second reaction to. Which, for your boy, wasn't a huge problem. I got him in 4 tries, but for a couple of friends of mine, they weren't so lucky. Maybe skill issue, maybe not, but the hitboxes are definitely wonky with some bosses. Another notable example is the 100-eyed Taoist. That's towards the end of the game. Well, over halfway through the game, there's a boss that is giant spider body, giant like fucking centaur guy. It looks like something out of the Harry Potter Cursed Forest or whatever that had all those unicorns and shit. And this dude comes out, and you want to get to like the side of him. Oh, it's a centipede body, not a spider body. Excuse me, I didn't mean to offend any spiders out there. But you want to get to like the side of his body so you can start wailing on his legs and not get punished up front. But you can't really run around the side of him because his hitbox is so fucking robust. Like the girth is so crazy that you can't actually run around the side in time because he's tracking you and you can't get around that hitbox fast enough. Sometimes you get lucky and squeeze through it when he throws out an attack, but if you want to actually try and like get behind him, you can't do that super well because the hitbox extends too far. So hitboxes were definitely a problem throughout the game with some of the bosses, but it was never like egregious. Like it was never to the point where I thought it was unfair or broken. It's just one of those things that when it happened, it made me mad in the moment, but it's not something that you can't overcome and learn to deal with the jankiness of. But yes, it isn't perfect. It's not, like, flawless. So I think combat is the best part about this game. If you're someone that likes high action, nuts to butts, high octane action, this is the game for you. It's a must play for that alone. And I think this game does something very smart, where instead of giving you like a ton of trash mobs to fight through to get to the next boss, where it kind of almost feels like filler, where you're just fighting a bunch of like scraps, you know, this game gives you tons of bosses, oodles. This probably has the most bosses out of any game I've played in recent memory. I can't think of any game that has this many bosses. And there's so many secret bosses too. And I need to give fucking huge praise for like the secret content they have here. I'm gonna glaze the shit out of it for that. I did tons of exploring. I explored every nook and cranny I could find for this game, turned over every goddamn rock looking if there's any gold underneath it, just all kinds of beautiful little nuggets of lore and treasure throughout these worlds. And they have entire zones that are entirely optional that are huge. Like Chapter 2, for example. There's a quest line you can start with a big pig guy that's slapping at his belly. And if you start his quest line, it unlocks a big area and a lot of stuff to it and a lot of boss fights. Like, there's so much depth that you can find through exploring the game. It's amazing. Like, I don't know how people are calling this like too linear or not big. This has so much to it. It's very clear you're just not actually exploring it. You are just beelining and saying that. There's so many side bosses, so many side quests that lead to huge areas with massive bosses. It was so refreshing to do these side quests, get this nice reward with either material, weapons, armor, something like that, and fight a fucking awesome boss that had like a really good storyline for the side quest too. Like, it was great. So I think that is exceptionally well done here. But what I was trying to say is these are huge zones for the most part, and there is like a lot of like smaller enemies throughout them, and there's some enemies that you can kill and get the spirit of to use on your side if you want to, and that's cool. But it's not just running through a bunch of trash mobs to get to the next boss. There's some trash mobs, yeah, but you can like explore off the beaten path and immediately just find a boss. There are so many in this game. The only other game that I think has this amount of boss fights is probably Elden Ring, and that's great company to be in. Now, I don't think Black Myth Wukong is nearly to the level of Elden Ring or anything, but I do think it's a very good game. Now, like I said, there's a ton of bosses here, and that's the best part of these kind of games, is fighting well-designed, great-looking, badass bosses, and this gives you that in droves. You know, like, you're more likely to find a boss in one of these zones than you are to find, like, a normal enemy. It's so nice, actually. I love that. So now, since we're talking about bosses, I want to give the good and the bad and the super stinky when it comes to some of these boss fights. The good. The bosses are really fucking cool. I love the visuals in this game. I think the design is incredible. Obviously, the game is graphically beautiful. It is a stunning looking game, and the bosses are such a treat to look at. And it feels really rewarding when you just happen to find one or you finish a side quest line for one and get rewarded with a really cinematic, like some of it, like there's some really cool cinematics. In fact, I think my favorite one is actually for a side boss, the Dusk Veil. Like, and that's a totally optional one. It's point is, the bosses look amazing. The movesets for most of them overall are really cool and feel fair. But there are a couple of bosses in this game that have actual bullshit in their arsenal. So the game overall, I think, is not nearly as challenging as most of the other games in a Souls-like genre, or I don't even think it's as challenging as some of the bosses in God of War 2018 or Ragnarok. I think overall, most players will find this game pretty simple and easy to get through the majority of it, but there are a few bosses throughout that are actually a slog. There's a couple bosses that are just, for lack of a better term, pardon my French, poop. I've already mentioned the Yellow Wind Sage, where a lot of people hate that boss because of obscuring your vision of the moveset, but I actually think the stupidest design for the boss is the Hundred-Eyed Taoist in his second phase. In his second phase, the challenge comes from him reducing your overall stamina by half. I actually think it's more than half. He gives you just enough stamina to roll like twice before getting winded. You start huffing and puffing like me going up 2 flights of stairs. And that's just not fun. That's a really cheap design for a challenge, where the challenge just comes from, oh, he took away like all of my stamina, so I can't fight back that well. And the counterplay to it is by using an item. I don't want to spoil how you beat that boss, but there is like a counterplay to it. But if you don't have that item, if you didn't go out of your way to find and get that item, it becomes an unbelievably obnoxious chore to beat him with like 2 rolls worth of stamina. Because then you get maybe like 1 light attack string off and then won't be able to dodge, so then you're just a sitting duck for him to put his cock in. Like, it's not a fun challenge from that design perspective. And I already mentioned some of the bosses that are really tall and you're wailing at their feet. There's never anything fun about that. I've always hated that from a design perspective. Like, sometimes it works. Like, there are a couple bosses like that I think are cool. But for the most part in this game, there's just never anything fun about trying to, like, hit a very small leg enough that they'll fall down so then you can hit them in their body. I just never really like that. But overall, I do think the vast majority, 98% of all boss fights in this game are really fun and feel really good to fight against. Now, I did mention that for the most part the game is on the easier side of a game in this genre, but I wanted to take a quick second here to pay some respect to some of the hardest bosses in this game. Yin Tiger, which is an optional fight where you can challenge a blacksmith that you unlock through a side quest to a challenge where you will fight him for his spirit. And he has, I think, like 3 or 4 different attack chains, all of which have like 10 or 11 moves in them. So you have to dodge or use spells. Well, actually, you can't even use spells most of the time because he has an ability to break out of your immobilize. So if you cast Immobilize, he's just going to teleport out of it instantly, so you won't even get any value out of that. If you try and hide from him using Pillar Stance, he'll instantly counter you with a command grab. That's something I also want to mention. He's not the only one that does this kind of shit. There are bosses in this game where they counter some of what you're doing. It's like they learned from you. So there's another boss, an Inspector, where if you do a Pillar Stance where you try and like wait out or bait out some ground attacks, because Pillar Stance puts you high enough that you'll dodge them, what he'll do instead is he will stop throwing out ground attacks and he'll just do range projectiles so he can hit you off Pillar Stance, which is really cool, especially like thematically. It's very cool that the bosses are observing you and learning you. So if you're trying to dodge Yin Tiger on your Pillar Stance, he's going to cast Command Grab and you're going to get one shot for it, which is very cool, and it makes him a very hard boss. And his 10 or 11 attack chains, which he does like 3 of those, he has like 3 different variations of it, are punishing. Like, it took me a long time to beat him. But the boss that actually took me a longer time to beat is Yellow Long. Yellow Long is this dragon guy who has a lightning spear. And in this game, this is universal across all the bosses, when a boss starts using attacks, if you run away from it, you're not safe, Buster. Yeah, just when you thought you were out, they pulled you back in. It's a ruse. They'll do like 4 attacks away from you, and their 5th attack goes across the entire fucking arena, like they just instant transmissioned on you like Goku. Like they go across the entire arena like a goddamn hockey puck, and then hit you with their next 4 attacks, and you thought you were safe by being a mile away. You weren't, bub. It's actually crazy how every boss can do that, but Yellow Long does it best. Because of his spear, everything is sweeping, and everything has a lingering hitbox because of the lightning. So when you're dodging all of his attacks, if you don't double dodge some of them, you still get hit by the ass end of the hitbox. It was super fucking challenging. I switched builds, I think, 4 times to beat him, and it took me like an hour and a half or an hour 40. That is the boss I had spent the longest time on. Now, in other Souls games, I've definitely spent longer on, like, for example, Elden Ring DLC, I spent 3 hours on the final boss there. So it's not to that level of challenge or anything, but there definitely are some bosses that will take you quite a few attempts, and you'll probably have to switch builds a few times throughout, which, you know, for some people might be frustrating, but for me, I didn't mind. Those 2 bosses, the ones I just mentioned, didn't feel like bullshit. Yes, they made me mad, they had me baby raging and whatever, but at the end of the day, there wasn't anything in their moveset that I thought was terribly designed or anything. The only one that I could point to that I thought was a little wonky was for Yellow Long. He has 4 sweeping attacks, and that leaves behind an invisible hitbox sometimes. So that kind of made me mad because it felt like, how was I supposed to know that I'd get hit even after I dodged it because he had like some residue that he crop dusted me with. But yeah, I wanted to mention that real quick. There is one thing though, another thing that I think a lot of people are going to hate when it comes to fighting some of these bosses: the health pool. That was a complaint of mine for some bosses. Some bosses have more health than others, and the ones that do, like Yellow Long, holy shit, they have a lot of health. Yellow Long was clapping me. Like, you couldn't pull his dick from my butt with the jaws of life. His cock was buried so far up my asshole, it was like Excalibur in the stone. You couldn't pull it from the stone. And a lot of the reason for that was because his health pool was so large. So even after you get like far into the game, the bosses don't feel like you're doing more damage to them. It doesn't feel like you're getting stronger in terms of how hard you're hitting, even though you're upgrading your weapons, you're upgrading your armor, you're adding more points to, flat damage buffs. The boss's health is scaling too. Well, I don't know if it's necessarily scaling or if it just starts super huge, but like, you don't do a ton of damage even as you go further and get stronger. So Yellow Long, like, I think when I finally beat him, it was a 9-minute boss fight-ish, something like that. It was 9 minutes, start to finish, of me just punishing him. Like, going as hard as I can on DPS, casting Immobilize off rip, doing Pluck of Mini, which is my Shadow Clone Jutsu, transforming into my strongest transform to stack on even more damage, rock soliding all of his moves, which is basically the parry system in this game. It's a spell. You cast Rock Solid, parry, gives you focus, I'll hit him with a charged heavy. Doing all of that, and still just barely whittling away at his health over the course of like 9 minutes to beat him. So some bosses, I really do think, just have overtuned amount of health. It's not like the moves I have an issue with, it's mainly just some bosses' health is crazy. Now, let's go ahead and move on from combat-related things. I know I've spent a long time on this, on that subject, but that is the main selling point for this game. Most people are going to be interested in Black Myth Wukong because of how fun the combat looks. And let me just assure you, the combat is even more fun to play than it is to watch. I really enjoyed it. I loved how there were just so many boss fights. They were so different from one another for the most part, and it really just felt good. And I spent a lot of time crafting a lot of different builds. Some worked, some didn't, some fumbled, some fucked. It is what it is. It was still a very, very fun experience. I want to get to the story now, because this actually surprised me. The game is obviously based around Journey to the West, and it has some of the most hype cutscenes of the whole year. I love the intro to this game, and I loved the conclusion to this game, and I got the bad ending. I got like the weakest ending, and I still loved how it ended. And the game also does these end of chapter cutscenes, which are fully animated pieces that go for like 5 minutes sometimes. Like these 5 minutes might be exaggeratory. I'm not sure how long they go, but they feel like a long time because you get a lot of content. After each chapter, you get a beautiful animation. And it's not always just like the same style either. There's like a stop motion animation in here too. I loved it. It tells a really interesting story. Now, I'm loosely familiar with Journey to the West, like the actual story of it, but there were so many things in here I had no clue on. And there were sometimes I got lost because the story is kind of pieced together in a interesting way that I wasn't expecting, so I kind of did get lost when it came to the lore occasionally, but I was still so invested in the world and the characters and the narrative. It was so fucking good. Like, that shocked me how much I liked the story of the game. And there's so many cutscenes too. There's so much more storytelling in this game than I thought there would be. I thought it would be all combat all the time. It's not. There is a lot of world building and a lot of storytelling, and it is done so well. At least I think it is. I do think I was done a disservice by just playing the English dub, because I don't think all of it had been translated properly. Like, there's so many times a character will just, for some reason, call someone else a rascal or a knucklehead or something, so that's a little cringe with some of the dialogue, but the overall story is really compelling. Like, it's very interesting. I was definitely invested in the narrative. Oh, and I have to mention the music. The music in this game is so good, especially during some of the animated sequences. Fuck me, it was beautiful. There are so many good pieces in this game. I will probably end up downloading the soundtrack. And I don't do that for a lot of games. I do that for some games. My favorite is still Nier. I still think the original Nier has the most beautiful soundtrack ever made. But this game has an incredible score. I want to call attention to that and give some flowers there. They did a great job with the music here. Overall, I just had an incredible time with this game and plan on continuing to play it to get the secret ending. There is one other complaint that I'll go ahead and get out there, and it's both a praise and a complaint. I think overall the levels are really, really cool. I do think most of the levels in this game are super cool. However, there are two instances that I do think they made a misstep. Chapter 6, which is the final chapter, you get the Nimbus Cloud. Awesome. Super hype. However, there's no direction at all. It's a giant open area now, whereas everything else is not really an open area per se. This is. It's just a giant open area, and there's like some big bosses, but there's like a lot of little enemies too. So unless you watch a guide, which I admittedly did, you won't really know what you're supposed to do. There is no direction. There's nothing to point you with a mission. You just have to fucking feel your way around. And that's not exactly fun, especially because it takes a long time to traverse through this huge open area. And there's not a lot to do besides do the right thing in it. So I do think that was a misstep. And I also think Chapter 3 is just way too long compared to everything else. Chapter 3 is significantly longer than every other chapter in this game. It's very good, like it's super good, but I don't know why it's so much longer than all the others. And I just wanted to call attention to those two things. Overall though, like I said, I think the levels in the chapters are really good, but there's definitely some room for improvement there. I think this game is extraordinary, but I do think it has plenty of flaws. I am very pleased with the time I've spent with it, and I definitely think it's worth buying. 100% I think it's worth buying. If you like Souls games, you'll definitely like this one, even though it's not exactly a Souls game. There's Souls elements in there that I'm sure you'll appreciate. If you like very high action games, you're going to love it. Like, I do think this is just a game that a lot of people are going to really, really like. I think it's worth the money. If I was to plug it into the Moist Meter, I'd give it a very cool 85%. Like, I really think it's a great game. And yeah, that's about it. So yeah. Astrobot is a phenomenon right now. It's a game that's getting perfect scores from pretty much every single publication out there. I'd probably struggle to find anything below a 9 for Astrobot right now. It's mainly 10s, and it's not just from game journalists. Almost every single person I know that's played Astrobot is singing its praises about how this should 100% be the game of the year, and it's not close. So I just finished it. And the question must be asked, why can't I grow facial hair in these two areas on my face? It's infuriating, which then raises an additional question, does Astrobot live up to the hype? Is it actually this perfect masterpiece that so many people are claiming that it is? Because Astrobot is getting more glaze than my trousers when I think about good boobies. Is it really that amazing? Yes. From the very first trailer, I was sold on this game. It just looks like a classic platforming experience that's simple, fun, creative, colorful, and just a joy. Charming. And I'm happy to say that it matched my expectations and it lives up to all of the hype. It really is just pure fun. Now, one of the biggest criticisms I see for this game from people that want to throw cold water on the face of anyone enjoying it is that it's a glorified ad. Yeah, no shit, but it's still like a really fun game. It is just a PlayStation advertisement. It's basically taking a walk down the memory lane here, where you basically glup shitto like a Star Wars fan, pointing at the screen like, oh, I get that reference. Oh, I know that cameo. Because in Astrobot, what you're doing is you're rebuilding a PlayStation 5 after it gets fucking robbed by one of the aliens from the Jimmy Neutron movie. And then you're putting all the pieces back together, and to do that, you need to defeat some enemies, defeat some bosses, and along the way, you're saving some bots. And some of those bots are cameos from beloved PlayStation classics like Ape Escape, like Jak and Daxter. And it's really refreshing to remember how great some of these IPs that Sony does nothing with were, and still are. A lot of these games really still hold up in the modern age. And then there's skins from other games like Bloodborne. Dankin said during my stream that Astrobot has done more for Bloodborne than Sony has in the last 10 years. And he's 100% right. Sony just lets that fester and die in their fucking putrid butthole, along with many other IP that Sony just trap in the dungeon, fucking lock away in a sarcophagus, and then call the wambulance wondering where'd all our great IP go. It's refreshing to see life with these properties in Astrobot. There's games that I grew up on represented in here, and it's really just nice. It's a feel-good experience. The levels are creative. You pick up some power-ups that'll give you more options besides just the normal punch and jump. So you'll get like little frog clampers where you'll be like fucking shooting little frog faces out there to blow things up and attack enemies. You'll get a time-stopping watch to help with solving puzzles. There's secret levels, there's challenge levels, and there's a lot of fun boss fights. It is a simple, enjoyable game. It's not a very long game. I didn't 100% it or anything, but it took me about 7 hours and some change to just finish it. And I did get a lot of it done, but there's still a lot more that I have to do. There's a lot of secret levels I missed. I didn't do every challenge level. I didn't find every puzzle piece. And from what I've read, to platinum trophy this game, it's like 10 to 12 hours. So to 100% it, you'll be putting in a little over 10 hours. And I think that's not like a short experience when it's one that is so memorable and one that's probably going to have you smiling from start to finish. I really don't have a single complaint for this game. I couldn't even fucking nitpick something if I wanted to. There is really nothing that this game does poorly. Everything it does extremely well. It controls great. It's visually wonderful. There's really fucking crazy physics to this as well that you'll also use to be solving puzzles. There's so much creativity. It oozes style. Every level is distinct and unique. I actually just can't think of anything that I could try and say as a negative about the game. Like, the only one you might be able to say is that it's too short for some people's taste, but for me, I think it's perfect length. Now, while I do think this is going to be a very strong Game of the Year contender, I don't think it's like a guaranteed slam dunk landslide victory for Astrobot. It's been a really good year for games. It's not my favorite game of the year. It's in my top 3, but my favorite game of the year is still Black Myth Wukong. My second favorite game is Space Marine 2, and then just barely behind Space Marine 2 is Astrobot. Those two are fucking shitting and spitting for that number 2 spot. And maybe when I go back and 100% Astrobot, that ranking will move from 3 to 2. But I don't think it's going to beat Black Myth Wukong in my eyes. It's a very good year for games, and I do see a world where Astrobot wins Game of the Year. This is a game that I think appeals to pretty much anyone of any taste. You'd have to be pretty joyless to find things to hate about Astrobot. I do think there are people that might not appreciate it all that much, especially if there's someone whose tastes are more in line with something that's deeper or more narrative heavy or more action oriented. Like, maybe there's just not a whole lot of things that you like about puzzle solving, and Astrobot might not be for you. If you don't like platforming, Astrobot might not be for you. But it is objectively good in all of the departments that Astrobot inhabits. It is very good with puzzles. It's very good with platforming. Now, while it's not a challenging game, I don't think it needs to be, because it's still just a really fun game. And there is a challenge to it, like there are challenge realms which do present you with difficult shit, but overall it is an easy game, and I don't think that's a bad thing. Also, I need to mention this, the music in Astrobot is extraordinary. Especially in the boss levels, this has boner jams out the wazoo. I was blown away by how good the music was in here. Like, I was bouncing up and down in my seat for some of these tracks. I really do think Astrobot is just a game that pretty much anyone can pick up a controller and really, really have a great time with. Even if you're someone who didn't, grow up on PlayStation property, you don't even know what the fuck Ape Escape is, so the whole Ape Escape planet, means nothing to you, you'll probably still really like it because it's just a really well-made game. So, I do think Astrobot is 100% worth buying. But I don't think you should go out and buy a PlayStation 5 just to play it. And please, Lord help us, don't buy the PlayStation 5 Pro for 700 clams just to play Astrobot. Don't buy that at all, by the way. I already made a video ranting about the absurdity of the PS5 Pro pricing. No disk drive, no stand, and $700 for a moderate upgrade to the existing PlayStation 5. But anyway, the point I'm making is I don't think it's a system seller type of game where it's so amazing that you need to go out right now and find a PlayStation 5 before it's too late. You need to experience Astrobot right now. This is a game where if you have a PlayStation 5, this is a must-own title. But I don't think you need to go spend a ton of money to get the PlayStation 5 just to play Astrobot. It is a game that you will have a great 10 to 12 hours with, and you might replay it every now and then just because it's really enjoyable to play. But I don't think it's a game you're going to be pumping like 30, 40, 50 hours into, you know what I mean? But I think it is extraordinary. I think it absolutely lives up to the hype, and I definitely think it is a game that is 100% worth buying. That's about it. See ya. Absolutely yes. The game not only lives up to the hype, but it has so much additional meat on it that kept my tummy full and super satisfied with the purchase. And just look at me. My grease is going Ultra Instinct right now. You know why? It's because we're under a boil water notice, so I'm afraid to take a shower for a little bit. So I'm just letting all the filth accumulate, which only improves my ability to game. I've been grinding off-stream Dragon Ball Sparking Zero ranked matches because the gameplay is just actually super fun and a lot different than I expected. So I grew up with the Budokai series, played all the Tenkaichi games. I mentioned this before, but one of the very first videos I ever filmed was a Budokai, I think it was Budokai 1 video where I was giving a tutorial on how to unlock a character. I don't remember who, but I put my family's little camcorder on a chair next to me and filmed the screen as I unlocked the character. So this is a series that is obviously near and dear to my heart. And when I heard they were bringing Tenkaichi back with Sparking Zero, I was extremely excited, but I expected I'd only enjoy it casually. Not the case. I've been putting some sweat into this. I'm putting some blood, sweat, tears, and cum into this game. I've been watching videos on like more advanced techniques such as how to get out of getting hit from behind, because back shots in this game are tough. Like if you're taking back shots, usually you're eating the entire combo. The whole whopper is getting fed to you. But there are mechanics, if you're good enough, where you can get out of those. So I was learning all of that, and I've been grinding. It's fun. Like, it's a really, really good game, both casually and competitively. Now let's go ahead and get into it. I'll get my biggest complaint out of the way right now. This is something I said on stream a few times that ruffled some feathers, but I'm tired of people pretending it's not a legitimate complaint. The episodes, which is basically the story mode to the game, is extremely lazy in its presentation. Like, it doesn't have cutscenes, really, it has slideshows. It uses still images to convey the story. Yes, it is a story that's been told a million times with Dragon Ball Z, but if you're going to do a story mode at $70, it should be done well. Like, it should be more than just still fucking images. I think that is a very fair criticism of the game. Now, there are a couple of cutscenes, but they're minimally animated. It's more like action figures that you're looking at. And even still, even in those cutscenes, it'll do like a Kamehameha and then freeze. And then you'll have the character getting hit by it go, ah! And then just stop again. It's basically like fucking stop motion, but terribly done. Like Lego stop motion looks better than the cutscenes in Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. And it's a shame. Like, again, I know this story's been told a million times, but for this price tag, if you're going to have the story mode in here, just do something a little bit better than that. And they also skip around so much in the story and don't really explain anything, so if you don't know the Dragon Ball story, you will have no fucking clue what is happening here, because it is nonsensical. They don't actually even tell the story. It's as if you asked ChatGPT to give like a 50-word summary per arc of the Dragon Ball Z story. Now, they have different POVs, which help to fill in the blanks, but not very much. They do have a really cool idea, though, with this, where you can actually change the path to go down a different branching path, a what if. So, for example, like in the very beginning with Raditz, you can choose to do it solo. You can just fucking raw dog Raditz and say, Piccolo, we don't need you. And if you defeat Raditz in a quick enough time, you'll get a different path that's not canon, not what we've already experienced, which is cool. It's not like the deepest thing ever, but it's a fun little addition to it for sure. And they also have another quirky little addition where when you're in one of those moments where there's like some minimal animation with characters, you can go into first person mode. I mean, that's just kind of nice. Like it's I don't know, cool. Makes it a little more cinematic, I guess, even though the characters are just standing around when you're in first person mode. It's at least different. But yeah, overall I was super underwhelmed by the story mode, episodes, all that. Luckily though, that's not where you're going to be spending most of your time. You'll probably grind that just to get the Dragon Balls so you can make a wish and get more characters or something like that. I doubt anyone's going to be playing Sparking Zero solely for the episodes, but I did want to mention that it is pretty lackluster there. Where you're going to be spending most of your time is probably the multiplayer. The multiplayer is so good, and I actually haven't had any real problems with the netcode, and I expected it to be like really sloppy. I thought it'd be like really laggy pretty often, because oftentimes fighting games on launch have been, especially anime fighting games. Not the case here. It is silky smooth. Very smooth so far, and it's pretty creative. So you have a couple different options. If you want to do ranked, for example, you can do like a single battle where each of you and your opponent, will pick a character, duke it out. This is the traditional game mode I think most people familiar with this series know, love, and expect. But they gave us a really nice surprise. There is another mode here that I think is actually much better and really, really creative. So you pick a team. You have DP points, which you can allocate to different characters, and each character has a different value of DP depending on a variety of factors like how effective they are, how much health they have, shit like that. So you'll construct a team with this total allotment of DP points, and you can have 1, 2, or up to 5 characters if you manage your DP that way. You don't have to have 5 characters. You can front load the fuck out of it by taking like an Ultra Instinct character or an expensive fusion, and then just having a second character be a step or two below that. So you can just go in with 2 characters as opposed to 5. My strategy, and the one that I have been absolutely ripping asses apart with, is I start with Janinba, who is my favorite Dragon Ball Z villain. I even have this cool statue of him here. I am a huge Janinba enthusiast, and I wish they did more with him outside of just one movie. Janinba costs 7 DP, so he is my first character that I start every fight with in order to just fucking start hitting him with frying pans. So Janinba leads my squad, followed by Krillin, followed by Chaozu, followed by Hercule, and then followed by Nameless Frieza Force Soldier. So it's Janinba and then 4 weenies. So Krillin, Hercule, Chaozu, and Frieza Force Soldier don't cost much DP, so I can have Janinba as my super strong character, and then 4 weenies to try and like whittle down whoever I don't kill with Janinba. And it's a really effective strategy for me so far. I also want to give a special shout out to Chaozu. I think Chaozu is somewhat busted for his DP cost. He has no animations. He doesn't have a running animation. He doesn't have a moving animation. He doesn't have a flying animation. He is basically just out there fucking T-posing, and yet his moveset is actually super fast and hard to counter. So in this game, defense is extraordinarily important. You need to know when to counter, when to vanish, when to perception. It's a lot. There's a lot of nuance to it, and you can kind of mash your way through it sometimes for sure, but the best players are going to know all of the timings, and they're going to be able to get out of these things. Chaozu, though, I think has schmix-ups that not even the best players are familiar with yet. So I think this squad is devastating at the moment. I'm doing really well climbing and ranked with it, and I just think it's a really fun format. You have your team lineup, which is always going to be different. You can have wacky lineups. You could have like really standard meta lineups with Ultra Instinct and all of that if you want to. But it just makes it so everything plays out differently. You're always going to be going up against different teams for the most part. You can always get really creative and theory craft what's the best use of DP. Is it good to go in with 5 strong, or is it good to just go in with 2 really strong, you know? It just makes it super enjoyable. You can even have giant characters too. Like you could do base form Janinba, which is a giant character. I think he sucks. Like I don't think you're smart to do that because he's easily punished and doesn't really do much in general. But you can if you want to. You go in there with all giants if you want. It's so fun. It's a great game mode. And now let's really dive into the nitty-gritty of the gameplay, because even though these modes are really fun, they'd fall apart if the game itself wasn't enjoyable. And it is super enjoyable. It's hard to play this game without a smile on your face, I feel. The gameplay is one that I think appeals both to casual audience and people that actually want a, skill ceiling to it, where there's a lot of creative skill expression. I think this offers both. So you can kind of mash your way through it, for sure. and it'll get you some level of success against other people that are mashing, but you will hit a wall when you start going against people that actually bother to learn all of the mechanics. And it's really, really well thought out. Characters play similarly, like you're always going to have characters using their light attack strings mixed in with like their heavies, which will stun so you can extend your combos like combo extenders. You'll launch a character away, and if you're someone that's mashing, you might not know how to follow that up. You won't get like the vanish combos behind them, you won't be able to dragon rush and start punishing even more to extend your combos, but you can, as a masher, still get the launch, and you can maybe still like, you know, dash over there in time, or hit them with a super. Like, there is just so many options that I think make it a really fun experience, even if you're someone that doesn't like to try super hard in games like this and just want to kick back, relax, and just play some fucking fun Dragon Ball. It's really well designed. But let's talk about it on a deeper level, because the mechanics offer so much depth like that you can learn, and I really appreciate that. For example, if you're getting comboed out the wazoo, if you're just mashing, you probably won't get out of that combo, especially if it's in your cheeks. Getting hit from behind is a very hard thing to get out of if you haven't like learned the defensive advanced, you know, mechanics. But if you have, what you can do is you can super counter out of it. You can perfectly time to vanish out of it. You can use a super counter. Like, there's a lot of different ways of getting out of these tricky situations, and you have to manage your skill points effectively. So skill points in this game allow you to do different things. It's not all defensive, but some of them are. So, for example, if you're on standard controls, you'll press R3 and you'll spend 2 skill points if you're getting pummeled, and it'll get you out of there if you time it right. But if you're also good on offense, you can actually turn that around. So if they press the R3, they use the 2 skill points to get out of it with the counter, you yourself can respond to that and try and keep the combo going. There's just so much back and forth. Like, I am very excited to see like the highest level of this, because it's going to look fucking absurd. I've already seen some crazy clips with like infinite vanishing, where players that are really good squared off, and they had the timing down on the characters, so they ended up just like vanishing 100 times. And they had all the perfectly timed perceptions and Z counters and everything. It is so exciting to watch and to play. I cannot praise the gameplay enough. I love it. And I think most people will. Whether you're a huge Dragon Ball fan or not, I just think it's super fun. There's also modes outside of multiplayer. Like, if you want to do just more single solo grinding, you don't have to just do the episodes. They have custom battles. And these are like user-created battles with difficulty that far extends beyond what the episodes offer. I found the campaign to be kind of like a steamroll, especially if you just go into sparking mode. The AI doesn't really know how to respond to infinite punches. But outside of the story mode, I will say, there are a couple of moments in the episodes that are pretty brutal early on, such as, I'm sure a lot of you have seen the memes, the great ape in the beginning. That is pretty tough for sure, but past that it gets significantly easier. But in the custom battles, that difficulty, that can go to absurd levels. So users will create their own custom battles that you can go in, search up, and play. And it's fucking cool. So playing against Omega Shinron on a difficulty called Hell, like, it's just enjoyable. Like, it's fun because you can always have these different battles and different experiences, and it's never just going down one set path. I think it just leads to just unlimited creativity and an unlimited replayability, because you can always just go to the next custom battle. So if you're someone that doesn't want to play like multiplayer against other people, you can do that. There's also tournament mode. There's a lot. There is a lot to do in Sparking Zero, but I really think the bread and butter is its multiplayer, and I think most people will find enjoyment in it, even if you're not someone that wants to grind super hard to be like a top level player in it, right? I do think even as a casual player, you can find a lot of success if you never even bother to learn like the advanced mechanics. Overall, I'd say Dragon Ball Sparking Zero is 100% worth buying. It's content complete right now. It doesn't feel half-baked, doesn't feel like anything's missing or needs any drastic fixes or overhauls, which is always refreshing, because sometimes games will come out that feel incomplete and you have to wait like 6 months for them to actually finish the game that you've just bought. This is not the case here. I am excited to see what they add to the game down the line. I know they'll be adding more characters, but I wonder what else they'll be adding. It's just a fun game. I definitely recommend it. That's about it. So yeah. And it just gripped me. It dragged me in. I'm sure many of you are probably exhausted from me going gushing grannies over the first Space Marine game, which I just played for the first time like 5 days ago, and now this one. It's just so good, and I love the universe. Like, I knew nothing about this going into it. I was basically a Warhammer Cro-Magnon. And now, after completing the game and seeing the credits roll, I would let the Emperor suck from my fucking tits. Like, it is... I have become hooked. I've already watched some lore breakdown videos, and I might even get me some of those miniatures. So if you see me begging on the streets with a bunch of scratch marks on my neck, you know what happened to me. But yeah, I think Space Marine 2 is incredible. It is my second favorite game of the year, just behind Black Myth Wukong. I don't know what crack everyone's smoking to say that it's mid, or I saw some like 6 out of 10s for it. They must have been playing a completely different game. This is as old school as gaming gets. I said this during streams. It feels like an Xbox 360 game in the golden era. Like, I mean that as the highest compliment. It's got a great story. It's visually beautiful. The gameplay is super fun, and I never got bored of it from start to finish. Hordes of enemies. The cutscenes are immaculate. Like, the final cutscene in particular, I was filled with so much testosterone, I almost fucked my own ass. It is so good. Like, everything about the game, I really enjoy, including even its PvP multiplayer. Like, yeah, it's not the most fleshed out multiplayer ever, but I actually really like that. It's super simple. You play as some Ultramarines, and you go out there and clap some cheeks in either Domination or TDM. It's really fun. But anyway, let's start with the campaign. So it's not very long, and this is a critique I've seen quite a few people say, that there's not a ton of content in it, and I can understand that to a certain degree. The campaign took me a little over 7 hours, just barely over 7 hours. I played on Veteran, which is the second highest. There is another difficulty, but I think that's probably best reserved for playing with some buddies, because even on Veteran there was a challenge there, and I imagine this will be punishing on the highest difficulty. And I also imagine this game is extremely good co-op. I played through on solo, but I think this would be a really fun co-op game. But I personally don't think that the campaign is too short or anything. I've said this before, I'd prefer like a really well-paced, tight 7 hours as opposed to a slog 40-hour experience. By the time I finish that game, like, my beard is graying. Like, I hate that. Where it's just tedious for the sake of tedium, and it's a bunch of chores that you start losing interest in. You just can't wait to be done with it, and then it becomes like a sunk cost fallacy, like, well, I've already come this far, might as well finish it. With Space Marine 2, I was always excited. Like, it just kept going hard. Like, it was going hog wild, ballistic, start to finish, so I didn't mind that it was only like 7 hours. And there is more content to do after you finish the campaign. There are operations that they don't feel like they're just some throwaway shit. Like, the operations feel really important because they're actually weaved into the main story. So while you're playing through the campaign, you'll be getting updates from the operations that are running congruent to that narrative. And when you're playing it, you're contributing directly to the main story, which is really nice. And I think the story is really, really good. Again, I knew nothing about Warhammer 40k coming into this. I did play the first game, but I think you could play this without playing the first one. It does a good job of bringing you up to speed with what happened and why Titus, the character you play as, is kind of under suspicion. He's built a little bit different than the other Ultramarines. It's also just so beautiful. Like I said, visually, I think this game has some of the best art direction of the year. It is stunning. Absolutely stunning. The game throws hordes of Tyranids at you. Your mission starts with, you gotta take care of the Tyranid threat here. Shit's going cattywampus, and you gotta solve the problem. You and your 2 Ultramarines that you lead. And you go out there, and you dispense some justice for the glory of the Emperor. Is there any higher honor? And I don't want to get into spoilers, but it becomes more than just killing the Tyranids. It becomes something much bigger than that. And it's just fun. So this has this horde system where during a lot of encounters, this is a very frequent thing. It's kind of the bread and butter of the gameplay loop. There's going to be hordes of Tyranids, or down the line, some Chaos agents, and they just send tons of enemies at you, and it's your job to swat them like mosquitoes. So kind of like in World War Z, if any of you played that game. I didn't really like that game, but I think they absolutely crushed this system in this game. They'll have like the Tyranids crawling over each other and making like a wall of meat to climb up to your position, and you need to like manage that wall, otherwise you might get overrun by just this swarm of insects that you might not be able to handle. Then there's, of course, like some elite enemies mixed in with them, some bigger enemies, some buff enemies, and it just becomes very hectic, but in a good way. Like, it never feels unfair or stupid or overwhelming. It just feels hype at all times. It just feels extremely hype, especially because the cutscenes complement that and just continue to just put their foot on the gas. I just actually can't picture someone sitting through this game with a frown on their face going, meh, trash, garbage. Like, I really can't envision that. Because this is, like, the essence of a game. Like, it doesn't try and do anything, like, super crazy. It's just happy and content being a really fun, over-the-top action game. Now, I do understand why people might be frowning about the actual combat, because it's pretty simple. It doesn't deliver anything that you haven't already seen a million times before. Also, the enemy variety is kind of lacking. You end up fighting the same enemies over and over again, which didn't really bother me because it's just fun to kill them, and the combat to me was fun. I appreciated the simplicity of it. So you have 2 weapons, and then you have an ability, you have grenades, and you have melee. That's it. There's not a ton of weapons to choose from. There is quite a bit of variety, but a lot of them play pretty identical to one another. And the melee is basically the exact same combos for everything. So you have light attacks, and you can hold for a heavy attack. And it's not the most fleshed out melee combat, but I think it's effective. You can parry enemies, you can dodge, and there's perfect dodges, which you can then punish with like this, headshot. It'll be like this aimbot headshot if you do a parry or a perfect dodge. And it's nice, you regain your shield. There's also finishers, so if you weaken them enough, you can execute them to get shield. It's fun, but it's not deep. So I do think people are going to be a little put off by that. It's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. But for me, I really enjoyed it. Oh, also, there's like a lot of customization as well, so you can really put your best foot forward here to dress to impress for the Emperor, make him clap for you, and kick his little feet in his chair with a smile on his face while spitting up. There's just so much to love about this game, but it's not perfect by any means. There is some real jankiness to it, but it's nothing that I think ruins the experience. I do think that many people are going to find it severely lacking in content compared to a lot of games that have come out recently. It doesn't bother me because I don't feel that way. I definitely feel like I got my money's worth with just the campaign, let alone the operations that are actually really fun and the PvP. Now, there isn't many operations. There's only 6 operations right now, but they're apparently adding more down the line, so it's not like it's going to be 6 operations forever. But even still, like, to me, I got plenty of content out of the purchase, so I'm very pleased with it, but I do think for a lot of people they're going to find it a little lacking in that department, and I don't think they're wrong for feeling that way. But overall, I definitely think Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 is worth picking up. It's the first time in a long time that I really feel like I was playing a passion project from the developers. It didn't feel like it was some, like, corporate decision where everything was dictated by, like, numbers, like how can we get the most juice for the squeeze from our players and fuck them, and maybe we make it open world or something, like, oh, maybe it needs to be some type of turbo live action experience. Though I do think this game is like pseudo live action. I don't think it's labeled as a live service. I don't think it's labeled as a live service game, but they have like a whole roadmap for what they're going to be doing with like operations and more PvE content. So I guess you could kind of classify it as like a pseudo live service game, but it just doesn't feel like all of the live service games we've been fed recently, like the dog shit that's been put on our plate from those genres. This one actually just feels like some developers love the property and wanted to make a fun, cool game set in that universe. Even something as simple as PvP multiplayer honestly just feels straight out of like 2010. Like back when I was playing Gears of War every single day. I know a lot of people compare this to the Gears of War. Like there are some similarities for sure, but it plays very differently than Gears of War. Like there's no like cover shooting elements to it or anything. But like it reminds me of how Gears of War's multiplayer was, from what I recall, somewhat of an afterthought. They just threw it on there and it became an absolute smashing success. I'm not saying the PvP in this feels like an afterthought or anything, but it feels like it has that same DNA where it's, we want to offer this because some people might really enjoy it. They're not making the PvP to try and have it become the next big esport to compete with Call of Duty or anything. It's just there because, hey, some people might have fun just hopping in for maybe like an hour every now and then, just playing whatever class they really like. Maybe you enjoy jetpacking and slamming down the hammer, just clobbering with a big AoE thunder hammer, and you want to just ruin a couple people's night by spamming that and having some fun. It's just a game that I really enjoy a lot. Again, it's not without its flaws, but none of the flaws of this game take away even a single fucking moment of the enjoyment I've had with it. So yeah, I do recommend it. I think it's fun. That's really about it. So yeah.